recording right now.
All right. So, I mean, you guys know a little bit because I talked about it in the group message a little bit. But I think the goal I want to create for myself is to increase my patient education level. So some things I can do daily, which I've already tried doing a little bit, is I do question recalls after I explain something to a patient. I've also started trying to, instead of asking, is there any questions, ask what questions do you have? Because I've read that that's usually a lot better at trying to get people to be like, yeah, actually, what is this? As opposed to like when someone says, do you have any questions? You're like, nope, I'm fine. So try that. So those are some of my daily tasks that I'll do every time I talk to a patient, and I'll document, I asked these questions and did this. And then Kirsten's idea in the group message was that I should score them or see how well they're answering. So like if, I measure it for a week, and every day, all the kids, I do 3 questions with them, all of them get them wrong, or they get part of it wrong or something like that. Then I got 0% for the week, and that means I need to work on something else or do a different way to approach it. But then I want to, at our progress, I want to work on getting at least, 3 questions, so it would be 33%, and then I could get 66%, and then I'd like to get 100%, like all my students or all the patients getting 100% on the 3 recalls, and then. So I think that'll be my progress or my milestone at, I think it was November 19th or whatever the date was, to try to get as close to 100% on those mini quizzes I give at the end of each of my evaluations or talks with patients.
I like it. I think it's a unique opportunity too for you because you're going to have to face so many different personalities through your setting and your evaluations with the patients. So I think it'll be kind of cool because once you sort of figure out, there's pretty basic personalities. And so once you figure out a way to communicate with one type of personality, you'll remember that next time you see that, and it might become easier as you go.
Mm-hmm. So that was like 2 days ago. I was wrapping ice on one of the players, and I told him a couple things, and then at the end, the first thing I said, well, how long are you keeping the ice on? And he goes, oh. And then, so I reminded him again, and then I went through all the other things like one by one and asked him after I said them, like, this is what we're doing. Do you know what I'd said? And he would be like, yeah, you said this. And I was like, okay, good.
Yeah.
And then yesterday, he came back in to get another bag of ice, and I wrapped it on him. I go, how long are you keeping this on for? He goes, 20 minutes. And I was like, there we go.
Nice. That's good. Good.
Yeah, that's really awesome. I really like the whole idea of the patient education and stuff. I think patient education is one of the most important things of athletic training, just as a whole. And so I think athletic trainers as a whole can do better at this. I think kind of the plan that you've laid out is really going to push you to kind of grow in that aspect and hopefully just get you better at it. So
yeah, that's the hope, and hopefully make sure the patients understand, because I feel like there's a lot of times where I'll explain something to a patient, and then I hear them come back the next day and they say something totally wrong. They're like, well, you said I did this and this. And I go, no, that's not what I said. You definitely misinterpreted all of the words I just said. But yeah, so hopefully that'll help so that they know more knowledgeable, and that they follow through and do proper treatments and things like that, as opposed to hearing what I say, forgetting most of it, and then doing something kind of close but not really.
Right.
So I had a couple of questions regarding usability. So to document this, are you keeping like an Excel sheet, and are you going to write out each question that you ask each patient? And then I'm thinking, okay, I'm going through patient care, I'm doing treatments, and there's no way I'm going to take the time to type out these questions for each patient or remember to do that. So I'm wondering what your system is going to look like to make sure that you document every patient education encounter that you have.
I think my goal right now to try to document all of them, we have an eval sheet, because we're still paper and pen, so it's an eval sheet, and on the back is notes. And so on notes, I put like the date and what we did. So I think I'll write the date, what we did, and what 3 questions I asked, either at the end of the treatment or end of whatever it was, And then I can either just put like 0 out of 3, 1 out of 3, like just grade it in that way so I have a basis understanding of like they got it right, maybe not knowing exactly which one they got wrong every time, but I could also probably like put an X over which one they got wrong. So I think that's how I'm going to tackle it. But I'm also thinking as soon as I start doing it, I might find a better way or figure out this isn't really working and find another route. I think my issue is then I'm going to have to, on another sheet of paper or somewhere else, mark what grade I got each day. So I'll have to somehow document, you know, I saw 3 people and I got, you know, 0 on one, a 1 out of 3 on one, and a 3 out of 3 on the other. So, and it also depends, like some questions are probably harder than others, but I think it's still, I should be able to educate them in a way that they could still answer these questions. I'm not trying to trick them and ask something they don't know, but.
Totally. So on top of that, are you doing this for every single patient, like not just initial injury evaluations, things like that? Because then I'm not too sure how you like document just treatments daily. Are you going to do this every single day you see every single patient type thing? Have you thought about like timing and all that stuff?
Yeah, I was definitely doing initial evals, and then if we do like full treatments or like if I bring them through something, I'll try to explain why we're doing something and then what that means, and maybe just even reiterate a question that we asked the day before that they maybe got wrong, or something that just to give them more information on their injury or their condition. So I'm going to try to do it on the patients I do full treatments. Now, granted, I'm in the high school, so a lot of times I see a kid one day and then I say, come back tomorrow. We can relook at you. We can do some stuff to make you feel better. And they never come back, which, I mean, it just happens. But so like I at least do it during the initial eval. And if they come back, I can eventually then do more questions, but it's hard to get some of them to come back, which is fine.
Real quick, do you keep like a daily treatment log? Like I know for me, like I have my evaluation papers because we do pen and paper too, but then I also keep a daily rehab book and then a daily treatment Excel sheet. I'm thinking like maybe you could simply like maybe just to remind yourself to make sure that you've been able to remember to ask these questions during the initial eval, and maybe a follow-up as well, that you could just add that, like if you have an Excel sheet where you do a treatment log, you could maybe add like the questions to another column, and just make sure that that's like check marked every time you've happened to see that patient.
Yeah, no, that might be a good idea, especially for like me trying to just keep track on my own.
Yeah.
Because I mean, all we do now is like the way the sheet works is there's an eval on one side and the back is notes, and then you just put the date and treatment. We don't have like here's all the treatments we gave out today,
Right.
kind of sheet with all the information there. I'd have to go through each eval sheet or patient
Right.
information and find it that way. So I think that would be a much better way of me trying to keep track of it.
Well, and if you want, like I can scan in and send you like the treatment sheet that I use if you want something to look off of so you have a better idea of what I'm talking about.
Okay, yeah, no, I'll totally take that and see what it looks like and make it my own.
Okay. Cool.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Well, I guess I'll go next. So mine is actually pretty simple. I am in a high school where nothing has really been implemented. So I'm basically starting from the very beginning. And I decided that I wanted to have a policies and procedures manual written by the end of the semester. And I thought that it was going to be something really simple. I was planning on like having it done like in a week before I got here, but obviously that did not work out. So this way I decided to break it down. And I don't know if you can see, it's really bad. I'm sorry, it's not that colorful, but I have like calendars, and then I have the progression, the progress milestones. So the progress milestones are the different types of protocols that I want to have written. So I incorporated like the basics, and I spread them out over each week. So heat protocol, cold stress, lightning, cardiac stroke emergency, active shooter, EpiPens, glucose testing, and mental health. So like just the basics. And how I'm going to have this is there's a due date, for about a week apart for each of them. So the first one, the heat protocol, I'm going to have done by September 9th. And then the next one is September 16th. and then the September 23rd. They're all due by the following Sunday, except for like October, where there's a week where I'm not going to even be here. So I decided to give myself a break then. But that way I could keep myself accountable that way. And then the daily actions and tasks. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set aside 30 minutes each day that I work to work on these policies. And then I'm going to do it in a place that's quiet. Because a lot of times being in the high school setting, you have a lot of distractions going on, a lot of people always coming to you. So I will find a place that there is no distractions during a time that I don't have to be involved in a rehab or anything. And also get rid of other schoolwork because it's super tempting to work on other stuff while I'm at work. And then daily I'm going to, or at least once a week, I'm going to consult the athletic director on policies that may already have kind of basically been implemented by the school, such as maybe they have a mental health policy and I just don't really know much about it yet. So that way I can consult with him or anyone else, any other personnel that I would need, just to make sure that I'm lining up my policies with maybe something that's already kind of been grounded into the school. And then lastly, by the end of the week, I will compare the policy that I've written to other policies that I've seen written, just to make sure that I'm covering my basics for each one. So that's kind of the breakdown, and hopefully all the policies will be done by November 4th. And that way that gives me an extra week to create a binder and possibly like copy and or print out and copy each one for necessary people like athletic director and coaches and such.
Elena, I think your sheet looks like you put a lot of work into your goal.
I
And
literally took 2 hours to draw this. It was pathetic.
oh my God, it looks awesome though. But it'll look nicer because you're gonna, hang it up places.
Yeah, that's why I kind of did that.
But then it's fire. Also, I really like that you're trying to incorporate the AD, and then I think since you have that extra week, or maybe you can even do it the week after because it doesn't really have to be part of this goal assignment before the date, but you can have a meeting with all the coaches and the athletic director and maybe other administrators that might be involved and try to explain like what this is and like bring them into like, here's how we're going to do stuff just so we're all on the same page and there aren't any issues.
Right. That would be a really good idea. I'll write that down.
I don't know if you have a student nurse, but I might check with her because him or her. I'm sorry that I'm assuming your school nurse is just a girl.
We don't have a school nurse anymore.
Sad
Yeah,
because
they- I
they
guess they
probably would have.
Yeah, but the nice thing is the school does have, it being a Christian school too, it has like a counseling service added onto it through the church that will be moving out of the school, but is still there right now. So at least for the mental health policy, I think that I should be able to work with someone within that counseling area of the school, and maybe be able to work one-on-one with them for that policy at least.
Mhm.
So I have two questions. Question one is, how is your support system at the school?
I think it's pretty good. I mean, the athletic director and I seem to have a pretty decent relationship, and none of the coaches ever like second guess me or go against whatever I wish for the patient. So I think it's pretty good. I mean, for them not having a full time ever before, they seem to do well with me there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So may impact the second question. Do you foresee any barriers or pushback coaches with AD with implementing any of these policies, such as maybe like rectal thermometry, anything like that, and how do you plan to overcome these like pushbacks?
Right. Yes. So I've already actually discussed some sort of heat protocol with the athletic director, and it there was, I don't know, he had a way of not answering the question of whether we could get one or not. He just had a way of basically saying that they haven't had a incident in basically forever. So like, and they also just said that they didn't have the money. So that was kind of the end of the conversation at that day. So I foresee the heat protocol being a big issue because I don't even have a cold tub. I probably am going to have to somehow get a hold of a tarp. So a rectal thermometer is like way out there right now. But at least for the rest of them, the cardiac emergency is also kind of something that I've had a barrier with, because they practice in so many different locations. Being such a small school, they don't have the facilities to practice for all their sports at one place. So there's not an AED at each location. There's also we are not allowed to use the AED where the soccer team play, which I think is ridiculous, but they told us we're not allowed to use it. So that's the other barrier when creating that policy. But the AED was willing to work with me currently on trying to get a grant for an AED, which we submitted. So we're hoping to hear about it pretty soon. So those two are the only barriers as of right now. The only other big barrier that I've started to come across in general is communication with the coaches. About only 2 of the 4 coaches communicate with me, and the other 2 just don't communicate. Not that they're not nice people, but they must not be communicators in any way. So that's the whole, like, I would love to have that meeting and sit down with them and talk about policies, but I foresee that being a struggle, getting them to just all together in one room, willing to sit down for more than 2 minutes with me and talk about these policies. So that's something that I foresee in the future that I'll have to try to figure out how to work on that.
I was going to say, hopefully our group can help you try to get through some of those. Like whenever they arise, just let us know. And maybe we've had maybe some experiences that are similar, and things that have worked and haven't worked. So just make sure to keep us in the loop on those.
I will. Thank you.
Perfect. I'll go ahead and go next.
Wait, can I say something real quick? Sorry.
Yeah.
So I like your goals, Elena, and I really like what you turned in. It was really awesome. One thing I would caution you about, and I talked to the second years about this when we did the actual mastermind 2 Sundays ago. A lot of times when we create goals that involve external stakeholders or policy, they don't have as much weight directly influencing us. And so we tend to lose a lot of internal motivation on that. And so I don't think you will, but Jenny did a good job of like taking an ownership perspective of her goal, saying, I want to be better and I think I can educate people better. And so like, she didn't explicitly say that's her why, but I kind of got that's why she wants to achieve this goal.
It's true.
So for you, I would say keep your goal. I like it. It's a good goal, like especially being the first athletic trainer there, like you guys need something. But really consider like your personal why, not like it'll help everybody else and everyone else will be safe. Yeah, that's all fine and dandy. But if you don't have a personal why you want to achieve a goal, it's gonna be easier for you to say, oh, I'll get to that later.
Right. Yeah. Find what motivates me.
So for everybody, consider that, like, especially if your goal involves external stakeholders, try to take more of an ownership perspective and understand your why.
That's true. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's good. So for mine, I had a little bit of trouble with this. One thing that I really want to do though is become a better preceptor. I think that in the past I've taken a little bit of a backseat role as a preceptor, instead of kind of led the conversation and engaged the student. And so with that, my daily actions would be to ask the student why they made certain clinical decisions and kind of put them in more immersive situations where they're forced to make clinical decisions, and then have a discussion on that before we actually implement anything. I would like to review one muscle group and associated injuries per week, engage students in documentation and injury reports daily, and then have a daily debrief for about 20 minutes at the end of each day. When it comes to the milestones, that's where I really struggle to find a way to measure kind of my progress. And I think a good way, I guess the best way to do that would be use each student has to do a, what's it called, like a clinical experience survey type deal, where they're talking about their clinical experience, talking about the things that they like, don't like, whatever. and possibly using that as one of my kind of milestones and looking at that every, I think it's 4 weeks they have to do it. And then associated with that, doing kind of like an interview type thing with this student. But obviously this is very not set in stone. Yes, Matt, preceptor evaluations from ISU. And then just kind of, I don't know, I'm not really sure. So I guess, what do you guys think as far as like milestones and the whole idea?
I like the idea a lot. We have our athletic training educator class right now, and we talked about what kind of preceptor we would want to be. And that was a big thing for me, is that I wanted them to get something from me. So I think kind of how, if you went back to how Jenny was talking about, she would score herself on questions she would ask them. So something I talked about was, you could ask at the end of the day, like, or at the end of every couple days or the end of the week, what did you learn today, right? Or like, what did you learn from me today? What did you learn from me this week? And then kind of document those. And again, like a 0 out of 3 for, or how many things they listed that they learned from you that week. And that could kind of be a milestone. Like at the end of the first month, you want them to learn 3 things a week from you. At the end of October, you want them to learn this many things from you, just so that you could give it kind of a numerical rating. And that way you aren't quizzing them and they don't feel like every time you talk to them it's a test, but more of a, so what have you gotten from me this week? So yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just going to piggyback off of Kendall's idea real quick. What we do with our students is, you know how they have to enter their hours into A-Track? In the comments, we make them put every single day what they learned. So maybe that's a way to track it, to take their idea and then maybe like have them do it in A-Track. So then you have access to all of them.
I like that.
Yeah.
And then I could like go and look back and like use that as a milestone. So like, say, like I'll tell my student to be extremely honest, and if they didn't learn anything, they didn't learn anything. And then just kind of track how many days that they think that they learned something versus that they didn't necessarily learn as much. So
Yeah.
Do you guys think that like using kind of like a rating system of some sort, like how valuable was their clinical education today?
Yeah,
Like,
that's
like
why
3
I
out of
was.
5 or 4 out of 5, something like that.
Yeah, that's why I was actually thinking. Like, I think Kendall's idea was great, and Kirsten's as well. And especially if you already have in mind like what you expect them to learn from what you're teaching that day, then that can also help. Like maybe you could go ahead and have like 2 or 3 questions written down in advance, and hoping that they would be able to answer those questions, and then I think maybe that would also maybe help you rate your success a little bit more if you already have in mind what you would like them to learn from what you're teaching them as well. But the rating system was what I was thinking too, like how valuable their experience is daily. I think that would be a really good idea.
Okay, very cool.
And then to kind of go off that, one of the things we're reading in our educator class was like there's different questions, like levels of questions. So like a low level question and a high level question and an other. But so like try to remember, I mean, obviously you can't remember every question you ask during the day, but try to maybe make a goal of like asking like 3 high level questions a day. Something like that, as opposed to like something that'll challenge them so they have to think critically, as opposed to like, because we can ask a lot of questions that'll make them answer like quick questions, but something that makes them really think about it and come to an answer, as opposed to something they just have to remember.
The only challenge that I have maybe for you, and I kind of had this challenge for Jenny too, I just didn't know how to word it. So if you get to the end of September and that's a milestone for you, a milestone date for you, and you notice, okay, they're only learning something from me 4 out of the 6 days that they're with me. What are you going to change at the end of September to make that a 6 out of 6? Does that make sense? And same
Yeah.
with Jenny, like how would a patient, if you are getting 0 out of 3, when you look at it at the end of September, what are you guys going to do to like make those changes? But mostly, how are you going to have another student that you're trying to teach get more from you, I guess?
Yeah, I think that's something that I'll have to kind of assess as it comes, because it depends on how the student learns best. And so I think that's going to be a little bit of a learning curve, and trying to find ways to make their learning meaningful by presenting the information the way that they can best receive it. And so it's kind of hard for me to kind of say how I'm going to do that.
Okay.
But it's one of those things that the way I see it is that I'm going to have to kind of put my feelings aside to it and really focus on the student and doing what I can do to like engage their learning better, I guess, or do whatever I can to make sure that they are receiving the information in the most effective manner. So, yeah.
And I think kind of for me, it's similar. I don't really know how I'll fix that problem until I figure out what the problem is. So if I get to the end of September and I'm like, no one's understanding anything still, I think then I have to reflect back on maybe how I'm presenting the information, because mine's not always like, I feel like it's not that complicated sometimes, like the 20 minutes on the ice thing. Like I specifically said that and he still didn't catch it, but then I reminded him, I went over it again, make sure he was listening, because we were out at a football field the first time. So then the second time we were in the athletic training room, so it's probably a little less distracting. So I think that would just be it, try to figure out how I'm presenting the information and maybe try to go about a different way. If certain patients aren't getting it from like just me talking one-on-one, maybe I have to find another way that they learn. Maybe I have to show them by like, I don't know, writing it out for them or demonstrating something for them. So I think I'll just have to figure it out when I get to that point. But I think that's why it's important that we have those like progress ones. Because if I get to September or get to the end of it at November and I'm like, well, I'm still getting 0s, then I didn't ever reflect back. So I think with these milestones, it's important that I reflect back and be like, okay, this was working, this isn't working. How do we fix this?
Adam, I wanted to, if you were still struggling to find milestones, the first thing that popped in my head was sitting down with the student and just getting their goals and maybe working on their weaknesses or something that they want to work on, because it's easier to put, numbers to those,
Yeah.
Like it's easier to measure those and try to reach those and make steps to reach those, so maybe see what they want to work on, and then that could kind of help make some more milestones for you.
Yeah, I like that a lot, actually. Thank you.
I'll go next with my goal. So I don't have an EMR or an injury surveillance system, so everything's on pen and paper, and I just don't feel like I'm getting the most from all of that stuff. Like if I were to want to learn anything from the information that I'm gathering, I just don't have a good way sorry, I'm getting so distracted. Okay. Have a good way to like collect data, and in general, my filing system is just bad. So by the end of the 90 days, I want to have a filing cabinet that is all the same files, all old patients are gone, and I want the files to contain their physicals that they got for the beginning of the year, their emergency contact information, a solid way of doing daily patient interactions, and a PRO's binder. So right now my office keeps my physicals, which is fine. I don't mind that because it's just easier for them to make an Excel sheet of who's turned in their physicals and who has not. But it does contain emergency contact information, and none of that is put into the computer. So how am I going to contact somebody in an emergent situation if I'm at an away football game? So I need to figure out a system to do that. So basically my milestones are I need to pull up my thing. By the end of September, I want to have all old patient files sorted and old information has been disposed of, shredded. All physicals have been collected and the information from the physicals has been extracted and entered into an Excel spreadsheet. And then by the end of October, I want to have tested and chosen an efficient way to collect patient encounters and then place patient encounters into a binder, and then have researched and selected patient-rated outcomes that would be good to implement into my clinical setting and put those PROs into a binder as well. That way, my PROs are kind of in a binder so that I can collect data easily from them if I need to, and I have available PROs on hand. That would be good for my clinical setting, so I can just not have to go home and print out a PRO for somebody. They're just there for me right away. And then basically by the 16th of November, I just want to have everything to be the same and have found a good filing system for my cabinet and everything to be done at that point. So really just my daily tasks are every day I need to make sure I'm getting into work a little earlier, because once school gets out, it's full go from there. So I need to get to work earlier and spend 30 minutes daily going through those old files, disposing of them correctly, taking out the information and putting it into an Excel sheet, and just kind of doing that by sport by day. And then after October, once I've gotten all the information in Excel sheets and everything, after that, I kind of want to test different ways to do patient encounters because we have to through Franciscan. Elena mentioned that. And we have to turn those in at the end of the month. And I just get so busy that I kind of forget to. And then by the end of the day, I'm like, oh my goodness, what 15 patients did I see? And write those down. So I want to find out if putting them in my phone or using my computer is the best way, or pen and paper is the best way, and kind of test those out and figure that out by the end of October so I can efficiently do that after my goal is completed. And I think October is going to be a lot of testing how to do patient encounters the best way, researching the best PROs for my clinical setting, and testing out the best, or researching the best filing system for how I need to go about patient encounters. So yeah, that's it.
So I want to challenge you to take the pros one step further, and maybe think about doing fillable PDFs on your laptop. Dr. Cowden, if you get with him, he has a bunch already in a folder somewhere. But then that way you're not having to guess which ones you're gonna need, and have to have a bunch of copies. I'm all about saving trees, but I think fillable PDFs are an awesome way to do pros, and then it's easy to keep it on a password protected computer. Kind of eliminates that risk a little bit more of having it as a paper copy. So if that's something you're interested, I think that could be
Okay.
a little challenge for you.
Yeah, just in general, having, I need an emergency contact information sheet to send with coaches and to have with myself, because them sitting in the office is not doing anything for me right now. So, and in general, I just have so many papers and files, and they're just not doing anything for me. Every time I go to find a doctor's note, I'm like, well, I have to find this person's file, and it's just such a mess, and it's just not done in the best way possible. So I really want to fix that.
I think it's a great goal. I think it's something that obviously definitely needs to be done, and that you're tackling this. I think it's great. My little OCD in me, I think I would go absolutely crazy, but props to you. And if you need help or ideas with any ways to maybe like organize things or file things or whatever, feel free to reach out to us. But it sounds like you've got a pretty good plan.